The church in China is very interesting because every city you visit, the church can look quite different. And you can almost tell in some ways that each church is a product of a different kind of missionary group from the late 1800s. So where I first lived in Longzhou, it was a very small church, about 15 members in church there. But a lot of the students were starting to join the congregation, and Christianity seems to really be growing with the younger group. In that city, most of the church members that were the most active were 60, 70 years old, but by the time we left Longzhou, about half of the members were then under the age of 25. So the church in China seems to be growing very, very quickly. When we talked with ministers in Beijing, they said one of the major factors that students cited for wanting to join the church was that they were missing a sense of community in their university, with people from less advantaged economic groups, people like migrant workers who come from other areas. They were looking for a sense of security. And so these two factors, the sense of community and the sense of security, and having a group of people to share their concerns with, were major things that people felt were missing in other parts of their lives, and found themselves drawn to churches for these services.
The church in China needs a lot of prayer because they are still working on becoming their own entity and finding their own Christian, a Chinese Christian church that is separate from what the missionaries gave them, which is a part of their history, but they need now to form their own Chinese Christian church. Mm-hmm. And so they need a lot of prayer to find out what that will be.
And one of the things we're seeing is that certain Christian groups in the U.S. are still very strongly involved and are trying to push Chinese Christians to become more like American Christians. And they seem to have the idea that there is a certain brand of Christianity that is just right. But we worry that without a distinct kind of Chinese theology, that there will be a number of Chinese people that aren't introduced to Christ because the message from America doesn't apply to their lives. What we've seen is there's a lot of Chinese Christians spreading the gospel, and they're spreading it much more effectively than foreigners can do in China. The Chinese Christian church, it's hard to say exactly how big it is. The communist government says 30 million, and they have their reasons for maybe offering a lower number. And some Christian groups say 130 million, and they have their own reasons for that. But it seems to be that the Chinese Christian church is growing quite quickly, whichever number you choose to believe. Even according to the Communist Party figures, the Christian church has doubled in China since 2000. So we're seeing rapid growth in Chinese Christian churches, and talking with ministers throughout China, their number one concern is space. Churches are overflowing. Most churches hold 4, 5, 6 worship services on Sunday, and they still can't accommodate all of the people who are looking to hear the word. One of the things I think is important for American churches to recognize is that China doesn't need Bibles at this point. The Amity Foundation, China's Christian organization, has printed over 100 million Bibles in the last 27 years and have supplied Chinese churches very well with Bibles and hymnals and other Christian materials. So this is no longer a major concern for China. And when American churches send Bibles to China, it often gets people into trouble and offers very limited benefits. So we think there's been some misinformation about the need for Bibles in China, and it's something that when American Christians send Bibles to China, it actually ends up often hurting local congregations. One of the other things I think American churches can do is they can continue to support the Amity Foundation, which really preserves the legacy of the early mission work that Disciples in United Church of Christ started in China. In the late 1800s, we had missionaries founding schools for women and children. We had basic medical services provided. We had agricultural projects. And when we look at what the Amity Foundation is doing today, we have education, we have healthcare, and we have agriculture. And so these projects that Amity are continuing are really important for preserving the legacy of the Christian missionaries in China.